Thanks, Renata. I really appreciate that. Welcome to a really interesting, exciting, and hopefully very practical discussion on AI. And I really appreciate our panelists. And can you hear us, Kapana? Okay, great. We can hear you too. Great. So AI is quite, with the exception of blockchain, it might be the second most popular topic here, and it's getting a lot of a buzz. But you know, I know as a consultant, we work with a lot of clients in the financial services space regarding AI, and some are tiptoeing, some are boldly going. But I really would like, we have a question that would love just to pull the audience on is, do we have that available on our poll? Maybe. I don't see it, so we're going to pivot. So let's do a show of hands. Let's do it. Let's do it. Like
oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, okay. How would you characterize your firm's level of investment in AI, engine AI, large, medium, or small? Small speculative proof of concepts, medium is we're looking at operations and looking at efficiencies, and large is kind of enterprise focused, very strategic in importance and level of investment there. So not terribly scientific, but please do that. And I'd love to hear how your organization is thinking it through. A lot of times these will be Goldilocks normally wins the race. We'll see. We'll give it a couple more seconds. If you can participate, that'd be great. Okay, I'm not seeing a whole lot of change here, so it looks like we've got a medium level investment, which is probably, you know, where I would think it's, you know, operations seems to be a large opportunity there. I know, Karen, you really focus on this professionally. I mean, you've got a lot of primary research in this space. Thoughts on this answer compared to what you're seeing in the market?
Yeah, it's interesting with regards to, you can see the number of 52% in medium in the investments in specific areas like operations. That's quite interesting with regards to, it comes into a collective of what we look at from CGI's perspective. So every year we run a voice of our clients, and it's a survey that we do every year, and we want to know what our clients are looking at, what are the key pain points that they're having, where are they looking in a direction perspective. And what we've seen from 2023 to 2024, there's been an increase in 26% in use of traditional AI tooling in regard to our banking clients that they've started to adopt. They are either implemented or they're implementing it in that stage at this moment in time. But the biggest change for us is on the Gen AI side, where we saw a 79% increase with regards to our clients are looking at that with either they've started a proof of concept or they are now ready to start that proof of concept. So that's a real change in the model with regards to where banks are going in that direction with Gen AI. And then overall, from all of our banks that responded to that survey, 32% of them turned around and said their number one priority for the next 3 years is AI. So looking back with regards to this now, it really is showing that AI is definitely here to stay.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. You know, the point of this conversation is there a case? And so our goal today is to really talk about real life applications of where the panelists are investing and spending time in lessons learned. So if we don't get to that, please challenge us in the questions, because that's the goal, is to give you all a real life examples of how AI is changing and improving their payments business. So let's start out with kind of the framework of how we're going to talk about AI. We think about, in EY, we help our clients grow their payments business. We help them protect their business risk management, and we help them modernize their payments businesses. So we're going to respond to and think about how AI is helping these organizations grow, protect, and modernize their payments enterprises. So let's start with the hardest one, which is growth. We think about growth in terms of sales, taking market share, monetization opportunities. And I think generally speaking, we're at the tip of the iceberg. We're not seeing like huge seismic shifts there, but we're seeing promise. So really wanted to hear from you guys about how you're evaluating the growth mentality with AI. And so, but we're going to start with you.
Yeah, sure. So definitely AI has a large potential outside of efficiency gain, which is how typically most enterprises start. And I'll talk about two specific use cases. The first use case is internal, enabling our sales team. Um, so if you think about payment industry, it's evolving at a rapid scale. You have market infrastructure proliferation, you have blurring of the global payment rails, globalization, fragmentation, etc. So the client requirements are getting complex. So what we've done is we've partnered with our enterprise AI platform, Eliza at BNY, to build a Gen AI solution that's based on agentic framework, which essentially is a bunch of AI agents that are collaborating with each other. So we have a segment or industry sector agent that does the analysis for that particular segment. We have a product agent that actually analyzes the various products and capabilities that we can offer. We have an agent that will look at 10Qs and 10Ks and understands for that specific client various different synthesis of what's found there, including cash flow. So when these agents collaborate with each other, they can actually recommend a product or a bundled solution that our sales team can use and have an effective conversation with the clients. And the second use case that I mentioned is around working capital and liquidity management. And recently I read somewhere that ineffective working capital or liquidity management can cost nearly 7% of your annual revenue. So if you could use ML and Gen AI as a combination to perform various factor analysis in terms of cost, time, various payment trails. You could leverage external data, be it Swift, GPI, be it economic indicators to forecast deposits and cash flows, etc., to essentially manage your liquidity and working capital really well. And if you look at these two use cases in combination, a very simple way to ask an AI agent a question would be, what liquidity products can we recommend to a small cap utility company based in Latin America? And the expectation is for your Gen AI to synthesize all the data and provide those recommendations. So we're seeing like real use cases of monetization leveraging AI.
So it really helps that shelf space for your sales organization, is that thinking about what is on the shelf and aggregating that, and so that it's not missed just based on education
Exactly.
or background of that individual. Fantastic. Okay, Kalpana, we're going to come to you, and thanks for joining us. She's joining us from the West Coast, so really appreciate that. I know that you have a great experience, and particularly in the personalized space, of how AI can help on the personalized side. Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I'm going to put myself as a customer first and talk through the life cycle of payments to help everyone understand the impact AI has had in terms of personalizing customer experiences. So, if we compartmentalize payments for a second, we can think about it as payments pre processing, core payment processing, payments post processing, and servicing. In our day to day lives in the digital world today, as customers, we send money to a friend, we pay our utilities, we shop, we pay for groceries, we order food, and the list just keeps going on and on. When we think about how we used to do all of this a decade ago to how we do that today, we'll all be able to, for a second, internalize the impact AI has had in our payments experience. Now, when I go to order food today, even before I start the payments, I get options on where I have the best offer going. Now, how does that come? It comes from my historical preferences, it comes from my choice, and the data that the payment institutions have about me as the customer. So they're able to curate and personalize what matters the most to me and actually help me through the process of paying for that purchase. Now, come to the core payment processing step. The pay sheet is so clean. They already have done the choice and selection for me to tell me this is the best credit card to use to make this payment. Or, even better, we give you the option to pay later in 3 or 4 installments. And to top it off, you have promotions and discounts that you can leverage because you know what? You're a loyal customer. And look, the savings that we are able to bring to the table for you. Now, this all was done manually by me, hunting for information, looking for offers, pulling them all together and going through the pain of paying a few years back. Just with the patterns that I have put forth in the digital world through my footprint, and in combination with the algorithms, we are now able to curate such a personalized experience for every shopper that wants to participate in this ecosystem. It doesn't end there. When you think about the post purchase experience, that's phenomenal too. You have the optionality to track your order minute by minute, second by second. You have returns which are made so easy today that you don't think twice to buy anything, because you know that the convenience of returns, if something doesn't work, is so easily available to you. And to top it all off, the servicing experience is also phenomenal, because I don't even have to get on a call and talk to a human being anymore. All I need to do is go tell them that I have a problem with my order, or I have a concern. And I get SKU level information that I can then pick and choose and say why I'm happy or unhappy about something. And that information also feeds back when the next recommendation comes my way. Now, why am I explaining all of this? Because what you need to understand is, as we step through this process, the footprint that we are leaving is again feeding back into the system for them to make more informed decisions about me as a customer and fine tune that experience for me. The minute this loop starts spinning, the flywheel kicks off, and this helps every organization, the payment institution, the fintechs grow and reach a much far a bigger customer base than they would have otherwise had a few years ago. So this is how I envision the future to be. I think it's already there in our lives. It's only going to grow more and help the businesses in turn.
So I think we've got PayPal's strategy. That's great. Thank you for that. No, I think we experience that as retail experiences in our daily life and forget that AI is part of that, and it's really about the data. Now, Karen, as a platform provider in this space, I know AI is really important for you and how you sell your services. So can you talk a little bit about how you're monetizing AI at CGI?
Absolutely. So a key thing here for us is CGI as a company, we've invested $1 billion. We made that announcement in late December 2023 that we're going to be investing in technology related to AI, and that is part of education of our people, our members, our staff, helping our clients, but also within our products as well that we sell in our market and to our clients. And so from a payments perspective, we're looking at with regards to how machine learning can help with regards in driving straight through payment processing, improving that process, because of the manual process of preparing payments is quite cost prohibitive for banks. So it's looking at how do we look at changing that model using AI to help with regards to that predictiveness in this particular payment has always come in, it's always been repaired, how can we change it? How do we improve it so that it doesn't go into manual repair? There's also on the fraud applications that we run today with regards to trying to improve on false positives that are a big pain of the bank's life with regards to so many hits that you get false positives on. So we've got also AI that's now being brought into our solutions to help drive down and reduce that false positive. Again, helping through that straight through payment processing for banks. And then also we actually have our own AI tool, which is called Pulse AI, which is interfaceable to any application out in the market today. And with regards to that, part of our solution in regards to doing that is we've created that model of with regards to creating our own secure LLMs in regards to this, because at the end of the day, the data associated with what you're using is absolutely critical and foundational to everything you do with AI and the decisioning you're going to allow AI to do for you.
Thanks for that. And I'll just add another use case on the sales side. EY has a convo coach where you can train individual salespeople basically on their pitches and their strategies, and that agent will help them improve in order to be game ready for in front of the client. So it's been pretty successful. So there are definitely ways of chipping at the growth side of things, whether you're enabling humans to be more effective in the sales side or to create personalized experiences like Kalpana said.
And exactly that with regards to what this panel, the audience was saying with operational areas, their key area that they're looking for improvements.
Right, 100%. Okay, so we talked a little bit about growth and the monetization. Now let's get into the protect side. So when we're talking about protect, fraud is the #1 use case we were talking at lunch. That's top of mind for my lunch partners. but also the regulatory and compliance side. AML, KYC is pretty important to you guys. So let's talk about how AI is really infusing and being leveraged to help us protect our payments business. So let's start off with fraud. And Siva, I know you wanted to talk about this because it's near and dear to your heart. So let's talk about how that works there.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to recognize is AI has definitely increased the threat vectors for fraud. If you think about automated phishing, deepfake, synthetic ID generation, social engineering, etc. So we have to recognize that. But at the same time, AI also and traditional machine learning also helps you solve for it. And the way I think of it and the way we've been approaching it is in terms of levels. So level 1 would be your traditional rules which set boundaries and limits to your payments. But what that doesn't account for is adaptive nature or learning as well as seasonality. So it helps, but it doesn't really adapt to how these threats are occurring. The second level is anomaly detection. So we would leverage historical data and label data to actually identify anomalous payments. But on the in the wholesale banking side, we do have imbalance classification problem because we don't get a lot of labeled fraud data. But this is where GenAI also helps because it helps you generate synthetic data to be able to train and create better models. Level 3, which is, I believe is going to be very effective for fighting fraud, is going to be an ensemble approach where you take in GenAI through behavioral analysis, you look at federated learning using privacy enhancing technologies, you can use risk scoring of your transaction because you want to reduce false positives because that's a big problem with fraud, as Karen mentioned. So you want to also risk score your transaction and decide on your appetite. So a combination of an ensemble or a combination of multiple different methods can definitely help us fight fraud better. So it's always good to think about the levels and at what level of maturity you want to be at or you want to progress towards.
Very good.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we're talking to clients in the payment space, particularly on the risk side, it's always a risk assessment, control assessment, and then it's a control effectiveness discussion. And then it's like, how do I know it's actually working, right? So Karen, in terms of risk management, reg compliance, how are you seeing AI being applied to the control side of the equation?
Yeah, that's a bit of a mixed bag across the organisation of our banks that we work with. But one of the key things is from the top level down. And what we're seeing is a lot of the banks are actually introducing an AI lead, somebody who is overseeing how the bank is utilising AI with regards to their business and what they are operating in. So that is a fundamental thing there, and it comes back to then your framework of your risk. How are you making sure that the data that you're utilising is your data that you are able to use in the criteria of what that data is allowed to be used for, which is fundamentally key. Because obviously when you're looking from the US versus the European Union has GDPR rules and you need to make sure you're in compliance. So when you are from a global perspective, the rules and segregations associated to tools of what you use on AI has to be reportable to obviously the bodies associated to this. So it comes really, really key how you are looking at AI and usage of it in your reg reporting. But also, it's also from the other side of things is when you are using AI, you have to think of the other regulatory things that you've also signed up for from a bank, essentially. So net zero. So when you look at Gen AI and the data volume that you're processing, you're actually consuming a lot of power from your applications. You're also then using a lot more water consumption associated with regards to the cooling of those systems. So AI has a much bigger, broader context with regards to regulation and your reporting back, because that is what most banks have signed up to, is with regards to that net zero obligation in regards to reducing, the carbon emissions that we all generate, in everyday life. So when you look at AI and how you look at it from a reg perspective, it's not just about the data associated with what you're using, but it's how you're receiving that data and the reporting that you need to do and the outer skirts of how does that impact you from a bank's reporting that is not just necessarily related to AI, but it's all of the other regulations that you as a bank are also under, which is a key thing there.
Yeah, I think that's important. Is like you're a financial institution, you're operating under this umbrella, and AI is one sliver. But you know, today it's a little bit of the Wild West, particularly in the United States. Like we always like for it to be the Wild West in the United States. But you know, there's not a lot of insight in regulatory. This is how you can use it. And I think you were mentioning yesterday there was an announcement, Karen.
And the AI summit that happened over in Paris, there was there's an AI Pact Act that's happened in Europe, where the majority of all of the European banks and a load of banks from Asia, etc., and countries have all signed on to this pact. But what was really interesting is that US has turned around and said, no, we are not signing on to this pact because we believe regulations restricts the ability to grow and learn and use that with regards to advancements in everything in our everyday life with all that we do, be it from a bank to a utility company, everything in that regard. It was quite clear that they turned around and said, no, we are not signing up to any act. So when we now start looking at utilizing AI within the banking environment, you've got, from a global bank perspective, is you've now got two different things. You've got the regulatory rules coming in from the EU for all your EU banks, and everything you do from an operational perspective within those countries, you are now going to be governed by that. Whereas the model that you might use there is potentially not even relevant here in the US because there is no regulation for you. You can do whatever you want to do, and that's what's coming out from that meeting of yesterday with the leaders from around the world. So,
well, I have never known in banking that we could do whatever we wanted to do.
You know,
so
I
I think
mean,
it's
in the sense of there is no regulation with regards to it. Yeah.
But like sometimes people in financial services, when there's lack of regulation or lack of clarity, it can paralyze people or it can advance ideas. So when you think about Bank of New York Mellon, a highly respected institution, you know, I would say a systemically important financial institution, are you guys thinking about responsible AI, and how are you thinking about the governance of that?
I mean, BNY is very committed, and I think we published last year or the year before our commitment to responsible and ethical use of data and AI. It's all, and they're broken down into multiple factors about accountability and responsibility, about fairness and accuracy, about ethical and lawfulness. So if you look at those are all important aspects of how you would look, and that commitment is important when we build these AI solutions. But the one thing I would, like for example, if you look at sanction screening as an example, people hesitate and it's an immediate reaction about using AI in it. But I can tell that BNY has been using traditional machine learning and natural language processing before in looking at sanctions processing and decision reapplication of that. But now, if you think about what Gen AI and the large language models that power it have, the corpus of knowledge and data that it has is significant compared to an operator reviewing a sanctions hit. It's subjective to that person's expertise and decision and disposition, and it's very difficult to audit or capture on the decision-making process. But if you look at a Gen AI solution or an agent, it has that corpus of knowledge, it goes through multiple steps of reasoning, and it can also document its decision-making process so it can be audited as to why it dispositioned it a certain way. So I think there are opportunities, and you just have to be open to how to leverage it in the right context. And I think it just is the beginning of how.
Yeah, and we just see that governance layer over
Governance
that,
layer on
and
top of it,
kind of like looking at what has happened, what are the expected outcomes, and how did it perform, and just continually doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so now let's get into the modernization part, and which is probably I wouldn't call it the easy button, but it's where we're seeing a lot of extraction of efficiencies, whether it's human efficiencies, systems efficiencies, data analysis efficiencies. So the first person I want to go to is Kalpana, because we want to bring you back in. And when you think about AI and payment processing at PayPal, or how you guys are envisioning it, you transact probably billions of times a day. I'm not quite sure, but probably in the billions. So kind of talk to us about how you are leveraging Gen AI today at PayPal.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to talk about it from the lens of customers, because they are at the forefront of everything we do here. The single most important thing for customers in today's digital world is the peace of mind that what they are doing online is secure and is reaching the destination that it needs to reach. This means we have to take care of two things as payment institutions. One is the speed at which we process the transactions, and second is how secure are we in handling their payments. First, if I tackle the factor of speed, every millisecond we optimize is going to result in a delightful customer experience for the consumer and more business for the merchants. Because the more transactions you process, the more volume that goes through their business and the more revenue it generates. With the help of AI, what payment institutions can do today when it comes to transaction speed, we spoke about the customer facing optimizations when I touched on the personalized customer experience, which is pre fill everything for me, just allow me to validate it and hit a button which says, okay, ready to go. This, of course, saves a ton of time. But on the back end, there are a ton of optimizations that potentially happen today. Starting all the way from understanding which is the best route possible to send this transaction to, given the time of the day, the location of the customer, where there is the most network congestion. Some factors are what I'm referencing here, but you get the idea, right? Because you are able to, with data, choose the best possible route to process the transaction successfully. But what is also to be kept in mind, to the point that Shiva made earlier, was with AI and data, you have a lot of fraudulent activities also growing. And you need to see how to leverage the data to the best extent possible to create that frictionless experience, at the same time, reduce fraud and hence increase trust in your customers. So, some of the things that not just PayPal, but I see many other payment institutions and banks doing today are behavioral biometrics, where you're able to detect the speed at which a customer is typing, the speed at which they are swiping, the number of times they're unlocking their device, in addition to the traditional means of entering PIN or passcode to determine how secure the identity of the customer is to process that payment. That's the initiation part. Once you do it, you need to have the risk scores based on the models and the data you have to deem a transaction as less risky or high risky. And depending on that, you can put them through an additional step of verification to validate that they are indeed them who's doing the transaction. Even after all of this, there can be interceptions and fraudulent activities happening. That's where tokenization and encryption really becomes critical, because you're now encrypting the data so that even if it gets intercepted, it's not subject to fraudulent activities. Imagine doing all of this real time with the scale of data we are talking about. That's the power of AI, because you're bringing several billion customer data, transaction data in real time and making these decisions to ensure that you create the best experience possible for your customers. Now, why is this important in the context of modernization, right? Because all of us are embracing the new wave of AI, Gen AI, and trying to do the best for our customers and for ourselves. In this landscape, what we need to understand is we need to move fast while sticking to the basics of making sure that the core values of taking your customers through a secure transaction processing is still the primary goal. So these are some things that a lot of institutions are doing and will continue to do as the landscape of AI evolves.
Yeah, it's like that, you take that value chain, you're just iteratively applying AI use cases in the data to improve it end to end. I like that, how you're thinking about it. Now, Siva, I wanted to come to you, and then we'll probably get to one final question from me, and then we've got some audience questions, so we'll mix it up a little bit. But so, real world applications, you've talked about sanction screening, you've talked about sales, you've talked about solution development, but a couple of other kind of efficiency gains that you guys are seeing in the, kind of the back office operations space using AI.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, efficiency initiatives are one of the first few initiatives when it comes to AI that anybody would attempt. But from BNY perspective, we are using generative AI and machine learning all the way from payment initiation when you receive payment instructions from non-standard channels such as APIs or Swift messaging, but in emails and PDFs, be different languages. Gen AI can easily help capture those instructions easily, so that people don't have to swivel chair and manually key those in. We're using it for payment repair, where we apply concepts of decision tree application, because we see 50% of our payment repairs are repetitive in nature, because upstream systems, client systems or downstream systems haven't actually fixed these systems over a period of time. We use it for something like exception management. I think there's one of the questions about being able to structure data, being able to, from an unstructured data, being able to summarize all the exception management for a given payment, so that we can actually see what's customer perceptible and be able to share. And also lastly, even for as simple as inquiry management, before we would have service agents actually responding to these inquiries on what's happening with their payment, and now I could use AI to get the data from all the systems, the hops that the payment has taken, to be able to provide a very simplified version of what's really happened to the payment. So we've seen various use cases in terms of efficiency, that they are productionized, are getting used, and we are starting to see that error rate is reduced, STP rate is increased, overall just helping efficiency.
So it sounds like from whether our team is thinking about monetizing the opportunity, reducing risk, or squeezing out efficiencies, the case is there, it's happening, it's real, tangible outcomes. Yeah, so it's worthwhile.
It is.
Right. Okay, great. So we're going to get to one more question, and then we'll start. And Kalpana, I know you probably can't see the questions, but I'll read them to you, and you can opine. But when you think about the implementation, if you're like lessons learned, best practices, I'd love to hear about your organization and how you got started, and what you would not do again. So Kalpana, can I start with you and just give us your wisdom there?
Of course. I think ultimately everything starts with trust and transparency, because we're changing the way customers are engaging with data, engaging with payments. And look, it's a learning curve for everybody, right? Not just for the payment institutions, but for the customers too. It's kind of creepy when somebody starts giving me suggestions on what I'm thinking. And if it is right, it's even more difficult for me to understand if someone else is thinking on my behalf. So I think the most important point for me is the more you're able to explain very transparently to your customers what your intentions are and what you're trying to do, the better off it is going to be for everybody. But it's not just that, right? It just starts with it. But you also need to make sure that you're dealing with data with a lot of caution, because this is related to data privacy. So, techniques around encryption, anonymization will need to be taken seriously. We spoke about regulations, so we need to think about how can we explain what and how the model is working to anybody that needs to understand it. So, going after explainable AI tools is also an option that everybody should consider, especially as we are going through this phase of transformation with a large amount of data and algorithms telling us what's going on around us. And last but not the least, it's not just a transformation in the way we live our lives and the way we process payments. The technology also needs to adapt to that evolution, which means a lot of legacy infrastructure and systems that we have in place will need to be looked at proactively to see how they will cope up and catch up to the trends that are evolving around AI and Gen AI, so that they can complement each other and really give the best outcomes possible for our customers. So I would again sequence them as steps. Start with trust, make sure you address data privacy in a way that you're able to explain it to the regulators and to your customers, and make sure that your systems are able to catch up and then take the lead, to take on the world as we embrace data.
That's a great response. It's almost as if an AI agent actually gave us that response. Very good. That's great. Lesson learned, real quick. Lesson learned from you.
I mean, I'll contextualize my response just based on, BNY has accelerated its journey in the last 2 years. The BNY Enterprise AI platform, ELIZA, has had a huge press coverage, as most of you might know. I think a lot of what BNY did in it, that has really helped us and we've learned from, is first, get your responsible AI framework set. 2, get your data foundation, because that forms the basis of everything that you will do going forward. And also the power of Gen AI is unstructured data, not necessarily structured data, so that's a challenge in itself. And 3 is to get your operating model in terms of whether you're going to buy or build AI as a service, how you're going to operate within the enterprise, hub and spoke model. So I think these were the 3 critical things that we focused on that's really helped us accelerate our journey. So that's what I'll leave.
That's great. Karen, how about you? Lessons learned?
So for us, I think coming from a solution perspective, it's the data. It's really making sure at this moment in time, your data is fit for purpose for AI. And I think ISO 2022 certainly helps us in getting that way, because we are all in that same format structure. And it then leads on to, with regards to what can I now do with that data? You are utilizing that. You are able to then be informed associated to that data. And the data in which you're using is data accuracy. And I think that's one of the key things that we've all seen from this is, and when we're talking to our banking clients, is how we're getting to data accuracy. And a lot is riding on the success of ISO 2022 in regards to that, because we're all coming in with the same common footprint in that, in when we then start looking at AI.
Very good. All right, we have a minute and a half, so I'm going to pick one. You, Siva, you pick the question you want to answer. We want to answer. How about that? Put some pressure on you.
Should I pick the least popular one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, fine. How is AI helping banks cut down false positives in fraud detection? Well, I mean, fraud detection, end of the day, AI helps reduce false positives. I use sanctions as an example, where when large language models are trained on huge corpus of data and can document the reasoning and the decision-making process that's auditable, that helps you actually reduce false positives. It can enable a human operator actually making decisions with additional information that helps reduce false positive. On the fraud side, as I said, traditional machine learning and rules are very binary in nature, because they do not contextualize why that payment was made. But when you use Gen AI, it can contextualize the nature and the purpose of the payment based on the recipient, based on the sender, based on the time of the day, essentially seasonality. It can contextualize and actually reduce false positives. So I think it's all about how you leverage the data that's in the payment, or whatever the use case you take is how you best leverage that data with Gen AI as well as machine learning.
Amazing. 5 seconds left, so we are like a bot. So thank you for my panelists. Thank you, Kawana, for joining us and providing us that retail experience. Thanks for providing the wholesale experience. And I'm sure they would be available for questions more specifically about anything that you'd like to talk about. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and have a good conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.